Spalding County Board of Education meeting. Today is July 18th. Meeting is starting at 6:04 p.m. Please place all electronic communication devices on silent or vibrate at this time. And next we'll move to our roll call by our superintendent, Dr. Keith Simmons.
Thank you, Mr. Brown. Okay, starting first to the women on my right, Ms. Sue McDonald.
Present.
Ms. Barbara Jo Cook. To the gentleman on my left, Mr. Zachary Holmes.
Present.
Mr. Will Doss.
Here.
Mr. Centel Brown.
Our Centel Brown present. All right, thank you so much. Now we will have our prayer and pledge. Our prayer will be done by Ms. McDonough of the 5th, and our pledge will be done by Mr. Doss of the 2nd. Or let's switch that.
I think the preacher should be praying.
Yes, Mr. Doss will do our prayer, and Ms. McDonough will do our pledge.
I was over here about to faint.
Our Heavenly Father, Lord, we just thank you for this night, the opportunity, Father, Lord, in the middle of this hot summer to come and do the work of Griffin Spalding County School System. Lord, we pray for your wisdom and your guidance in all that we do and all that we say. We pray, Father, Lord, that you will begin to bless our families continuously as we begin this new school year. In Christ's name we pray. Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you so much. Now we'll have our Griffin Spalding County School System announcements by Mr. Doss of the 2nd.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Monday, this upcoming Monday, July 24th, will be our back-to-school celebration. Woo-hoo!
Yeah.
Everybody ready? It'll be at Oak Hill Baptist Church. That'll start at 8 a.m. Griffin Spalding County School System open house is Thursday, July 27th from 3 until 7. Tuesday, August 1st is first day of school. Day one in the district will be happening all across the county. Tuesday, August 1st will be our board work session meeting that will be at 4 o'clock here in the boardroom. And then Tuesday, August 15th will be our Board of Education business meeting, which will be at 6 o'clock. Thank you, Mr. Chair. That concludes my report.
All righty, thank you so much. Let's adhere to those announcements. Now it's time for the adoption of the agenda. What do we have as it relates to the pleasure of the adoption of the agenda from this board?
Mr. Chair, with one correction that we place a executive session after the break for guests to leave, that we place it there, and that we adopt the agenda as presented otherwise.
All right, we've heard it's been motioned by Mr. Doss. Is there a second? Second. All right, it's been properly motioned and seconded. All those in favor, please vote by raising your right hand. So moved. 5-0. All right, moving into recognitions from Ms. Sue McDonough of the 5th.
All right, good evening, everyone. Would like to recognize Dr. Keith Simmons, recognizing the Human Resources Department.
Thank you, Mrs. McDonald. At this time, members of the board, invited guests, staff, and employees, I'd like to share with you a correspondence that I received from the Georgia Association of School Personnel Administrators. It reads, "We are pleased to notify you that your system was recently recognized by the Georgia Association of School Personnel Administrators, also known as GASPA, during the spring conference held back in May on the 24th through the 26th. This year, personnel professionals like yours were honored for outstanding achievement in various human resources activities with the distinctions of platinum, gold, and silver. We are pleased to tell you that your Human Resources Department received a silver award in retention practices." So at this time, I would like Mrs. Judy Battle and members of the Human Resources staff to come up and be recognized for receiving a silver award recognition in those practices that we employ to retain our employees.
That's great.
Congratulations. Ladies.
Congratulations. Congratulations. Good to see you again. Congratulations. Congratulations.
Everybody give Carmen another hand.
Mr. Brown, that concludes recognitions for this evening.
All right, thank you so much, Ms. McDonald. All right, now we're going to move on to our next section of the agenda for public comments. We do have some folks who have signed up for public comments. Just give me a second. I will read to you the guidelines for public comments. As board policy BCBI, any individual desiring to speak is requested to give his or her name, address, and the group, if any, if he or she is presenting. The speaker is expected to address the board, not the audience. The presentation should be as brief as possible, yet should include all information considered important by the speaker. Unless an extension of time is granted, each speaker shall not exceed 3 minutes. Questions, suggestions, proposals, or criticisms which have been presented verbally should also be submitted when practical in writing and should be signed by the individual or the spokesperson of the group appearing before the board. Persons appearing before the board is reminded as a point of information that the members of the board are without authority to act independently as individuals in official matters, and no profane and/or vulgar language or personal abuse against any person will be permitted. The board vests in its chairperson and another presiding officer authority to terminate the remarks of any individual who does not adhere to the above protocols. We have a list for us today. Our first person is Ms. Yolanda Johnson.
Hi, my name is Yolanda Johnson. I live at 124 Wilder Way, Williamson, Georgia. I'm here on behalf of my son and other scholars at Griffin High School for their baseball team. My son has played ball for both football and baseball. The baseball field conditions for years have been terrible. We have the outfield is unlevel. We have been trying to work for a long time to see about getting some stuff done. It was brought to my attention that the reason why things didn't change out there is because nobody spoke up didn't say anything enough. So now we're trying to get extra involved, trying to find out, why we would have to, as parents, why it wouldn't be something that the AD and the school kind of took over. But as we've been moving forward, we have been working with Dr. Warren. He's been trying to give us updates on the field and stuff, especially since we've had the tornado come through. And the tornado, kind of blessing and a curse, blessing because it has put light out there on the field. We are able to get some things done. It's just not happening as quickly as we would like for it to happen. So now it's kind of, where do we go from here? How long do our boys, our scholars, have to continue to work in those conditions? The parking lot area was supposed to be fixed a while ago. SPLOST money is sitting aside for that. So where are we standing? How are we moving forward with that?
Thank you so much, Ms. Johnson. Next, we have Jimmy Maddox. And Mr. Maddox, if you would just state your name, of course, and your address.
My name is Jimmy Maddox. I have a house at 1354 Moreland Road. I agree with Ms. Yolanda. Has any of the board visited these fields that she's talking about? They're in pitiful shape. You can't even get the grass cut. The batting cages need replacing. The field is unlevel. The storm took out one of the dugouts. We just asking for somebody to make a decision. I would ask each and every one of you to go visit the ball fields. I've been supporting this team, this effort, for going on 4 or 5 years now. And it's been the same way. The parking lot's atrocious. The field's atrocious. The batting cages are atrocious. We just asking for some help. Do we want these boys out there like all the other gangs in Griffin and Spalding County? No, we don't. These coaches, parents, grandparents, I'm a grandparent. I'm going to have a girl playing softball this year. We need some help. That's all we're asking. Just somebody. I mean, you can't even get the grass cut. They said that Griffin High ain't got but one lawnmower. That's unheard of. Each and every one of you should be ashamed. All I'm asking is go visit it and see for yourself. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Maddox. Next up, Amy Lopez.
Good afternoon. I'm short, so I gotta move this. My name is Amy Lopez. I reside at 121 Quail Creek Drive, Griffin, Georgia. I'm here today to kind of reiterate what Ms. Johnson came in to say. Ms. Johnson's done a very good job by meeting with people and trying to get this going for us, and unfortunately, we're still at a standstill. So basically, I'm a member of the Diamond Club for the Griffin High baseball team. I'm going on my 5th year as a member, and haven't seen any change out there. I mean, the tornado, it did do destruction, but prior to the tornado, the field just hasn't been really what the boys deserve to be playing on. I know that, we've been told that things will take place, repairs will be made, and again, nothing's really happening. We used Trinity Christian School last year to play our baseball games on. Unfortunately, I was told that we will not have that opportunity this year due to the fact that they will be having their own baseball team this year. So if we do not make a move to get these fields appropriate, I just don't know what our baseball season holds. And I mean, these boys, they love this game. They deserve to have a field that can be played on, that they don't have to worry about being injured or anything like that. So we're just asking, we need help, and whatever you guys can do, or even, the district can do to try to get this moving along, so that way in January, we're ensured that we can get out there and these boys can play ball. Thank you for your time.
Thank you so much, Ms. Maddox. Next, we'll have Renee Fletcher. Sorry, Ms. Lopez, thank you.
Hi, I'm Renee Fletcher, stay at 35 Caldwell Road, Griffin, Georgia. As everybody else said, I'm reiterating as another parent for the baseball team. Also, I would like to know who is responsible for the upkeeping of the school, because it's ridiculous that as a parent we will have to come out and do this. I think that this is something that should be taken care of anyway, as if you have a job to be done, okay, take care of that and take care of the school, you take care of the fields, if you take care of all the schools around here. And then what will we do, what will the boys do when it come down to if they do not have a field to play on? Where will we go? We don't know. So if all we asking is for help, for this to be done at least this year, starting this year, because this hurricane happening January of this year, and we almost at the end of the year, not far from it. We finna come into another school year. So we just asking for help, somebody to take on and just get this done for us. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. Again, thank you so much, Ms. Fletcher, for your comments. The last person we have is Matthias Johnson. Matthias Johnson.
Good evening, everybody. I'm Matthias Johnson. I live at 124 Wilder Way, Williamson, Georgia, and I'm here speaking on behalf of the rest of my baseball team. So I'm going into my senior year now, and way before then, like even before the tornado, we've been having a lot of bad field conditions, to where it's like if it's raining, the backstop behind first base or like little dirt that's behind it, it gets flooded. And back in the outfield, this is where I play. In left field, there's like little holes that could easily be tripped on, twist the ankle or whatever. And the backstop, that's pretty bad too. But we have been seeing some progress out there. I've been told that it's some of the insurance company trying to, take their time with helping fix everything that's going on. But my question was just how long is that going to take? Because it seems like we're getting limited time. Like, we're about to get in our school year, and we're just now seeing some stuff. Sorry. But, yeah, that's pretty much it. Just we wondering when it's going to get finished, when is everything going to start, and, and the batting cages. There's a lot of holes that are in the batting cages. Whenever we go out, we still try to get a couple swings in practice. The balls, if we hit hard enough, they'll fly out the cage and they'll go into the part of the forest where we can't really get it, or it's hazardous because we don't know what side though. Mm-hmm. But pretty much that's all I'm asking. Just when is it gonna happen? How long is it gonna take? Because we only have till January, probably less than that. Thank you.
No problem. Thank you so much. As a scholar, I know that was probably kind of tough for you to come and advocate for yourself, but we greatly appreciate you using your number one skill, and that's to advocate for yourself. And that's how we prepare our scholars to be college and career ready. And so, Mr. Johnson, thank you so much to your teammates for you coming and advocating for your team. And we hear your concerns. And so we just want to say thank you again to the scholar for coming, and to the parentals that came. Thank you for sharing your concerns as well, and we definitely hear them. If not, you will be in contact, the superintendent's office will be in contact with you or his designee as it relates to the ongoing updates of the baseball field. So thank you so much. All right, we are going to go into executive session, so it is allow the guests to leave, but before we do that, is there a motion on the floor?
For the
Benefit of. So we shall go into executive session to discuss and deliberate upon the employment of personnel.
second.
All right, it's been properly moved and second to go into executive session to deliberate upon the appointment of personnel. When your name is called, please tell me your vote. District 1, yes. District 2?
Yes.
District 3? Yes. District 4? Yes. And District 5?
Yes.
We are now in executive session.
You know, yeah, so, well, we do stream it, so it's important you stay close to the microphone. Yes, sir. But you can just use the forward or back arrow or space bar or backspace, whatever you want to do. Yeah, you would think it would let you just swipe. Well, it did. Yeah, okay. I don't know, this is a presentation. Like we're at the end of it.
He would have had a Collier.
That's the end of it there.
I prepared this. Collier has a document. Yeah.
Yours may be the one that's attached to the agenda. I know they said they didn't want one. This one attached to the agenda.
Got it.
So it's kind of loaded separately.
So I don't need to be able to do that.
No, so when you guys get ready to present, I'll bring up from back there. I'll open up whatever it is that you're doing. And so you have the what's it called, do you know? Oh, okay, I just had Dr. Simmons' name on it. So this is... Yeah. Do you want me to display this? Yeah, you can just swipe up. So you'll do this one first, then the presentation, or is that something?
We'll do the presentation first,
And then we'll turn it off. Okay, that's good to know. Okay. All right. Well, thanks.
Thank you. No, appreciate you.
You can open it, or I'll open it. Either way. Usually I'll open it.
Mr. Chair, I make a motion that we come out of executive session.
It's been moved to come out of executive session. Is there a second? Second. It's been moved and seconded to come out of executive session. Moved by Mr. Doss of the second, seconded by Leader Holmes of the third. All those in favor when your district is called, state your vote. District 1, yes. District 2?
Yes.
District 3? Yes. District 4?
Yes.
District 5? Yes. 5-0, we are out of executive session. All right. Consent agenda. What is the pleasure of this body as it relates to the consent agenda? Mr. Chair.
Second.
It's been moved by Leader Holmes of the third and seconded by Mr. Doss of the second to present the consent agenda as is. When your name is called, district is called, please state your vote. District 1, yes. District 2?
Yes.
District 3?
Yes.
District 4?
Yes.
District 5?
Yes.
5-0, consent agenda is approved. All right, action items. Central office building renovations, Mr. Bruce Ballard.
Good evening, Mr. Chair, board members, and Dr. Simmons. Want to come to you tonight to present a renovation modification project that we have been talking about for a while. It has to do with this building and some of the efforts that are needed here with roofing and HVAC and other supports like generators and so forth. So we had put that out for bids, posted on the Georgia Procurement Registry back on the 17th of May. And with that, we had 402 vendors that were notified of the bid opportunity. And with that, we had a pre-bid meeting for any interested parties on the 1st of June. With that, we had 3 contractors that showed up and expressed an interest in bidding on the project. As of the 15th of June, when we took the bids, 2 of those actually chose to back out and not bid. And so we ended up receiving the 1 bid from Media Construction Company for the project. With that, we did reach out to our architects and engineers and kind of go through the project and just to make sure that everything seemed within line. Again, the costs were around what we were looking at and what we were expecting. And then also with the continued increases in prices, they were concerned that if we held off and waited and tried to go through another bid, that prices may be up more than down. So with that, we went ahead and pulled together and looked at what we had available. Within our Splash 3 and Splash 4 money that we had left over for this campus, we have approximately $2,928,000. And of course, we do still have the parking lot work we're working on, so we wanted to try to leave as much as possible for those efforts to try to accomplish that. So with that, we had the base bid of $2,432,000. We also had some alternates we were looking at, but at this time feel like that we should just hold off on the alternates and just stick with the base bid until we get the other pricing in for the parking lots and see what we can do with that. So with that, we want to bring to you tonight for your consideration and we recommend that the Griffin Spalding Board of Education approve the lowest overall base bid price of $2,432,000 submitted by Media Construction Company for the Central Office A Building renovations and modifications project.
Thank you so much, Mr. Ballard. Board members, you've heard the presentation from Mr. Ballard. Are there any discussion at this time? Is there any discussion at this time? All right, hearing none. What is the pleasure of this body as it relates to action item 1, Central Office A Building renovations?
Mr. Chair, I make a motion to accept the recommendation.
All right, it's been properly moved by Mr. Doss of the second to accept the recommendation. Is there a second?
Second.
All right, we'll give that to the Dean of this board, Mrs. Barbara Jo Cook, as a second. All those in favor, please vote by raising your right hand. 5-0, it's approved. Thank you so much. Next up, Ms. Judy Battle, Pro Care Contracted Services for Staffing Support.
Pro Care.
Good Good evening, Chairman, board members, and Superintendent Simmons. We bring before you a recommendation to enter into an agreement with ProCare for contracted services to help fill vacant teaching allotted positions for the 23-24 school year.
All right, ladies and gentlemen of the board, you have heard the presentation from the Human Resource Director, Executive Director Judy Battle. What is the pleasure of this body as it relates to item 2, ProCare contracted services for staffing support?
Mr. Brown, can you give me a minute? I thought I had a question. I'm trying
I'm
to find
sorry.
my sheet.
Please forgive me. Ms. McDonald, go ahead for questioning. Sorry.
Well, I'm looking for my sheet. Hang on just a second. Thank you. There it is. The ProCare Blazing Works, is that correct,
That's correct.
Ms. Battle?
Is that your question, Ms. Battle?
I'm sorry.
The ProCare Blazer Works, is that correct?
Yes.
It says these allotments across all schools would not exceed 1 million, is that correct?
Correct. That would be the grand total, and we're looking at filling multiple allotments. We estimate about 11 to 12. So that would just be teaching positions that are currently allotted and budgeted that we have not yet filled, and we would just use it using a contracted services system.
Okay, I'm a little confused. So we're using ProCare and Blazer Works to fill these positions?
To help us, yes, to help us fill the vacancies.
Okay. And the million, not to exceed $1 million, is for?
For the various positions. So it's up to between 11 and 12 teaching positions.
Okay. Okay.
All right. Are there any other questions? Any other questions? All right. Thank you so much for your question, Ms. McDonald. I'm glad it was satisfied and answered. What is the pleasure of this board as it relates to item 2, ProCare contracted service or staffing support?
We accept the recommendation from our HR Director, Ms. Judy Battle.
All right. It's been moved by Leader Holmes III. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by the Dean of this board, Mrs. Barbara Jo Cook. All in favor, please raise your right hand. Thank you so much. 5-0. Therefore approved. Next up, GSCS 2023-2024 school fundraiser list, Dr. Donald Warren.
Good evening, board members. I'm here to present for your consideration and approval our fundraiser list from our schools for the 23-24 school year. The majority of these items were approved last year, the vast majority, although there are some new fundraiser requests this year. Each year, schools and groups and extracurricular activities and clubs engage in a number of activities to raise funds for various school-related purposes. In most instances, the funds augment monies that are provided from system allocations. Throughout the school year, clubs, athletics teams, academic teams, and PTO, etc., if they did not submit a fundraiser, they can choose from your approved list and conduct that fundraiser during the school year. Mr. Willer reviewed the requests that relate to food items and gave a satisfactory pass. So at this time, I'm asking your approval of the recommendation for our fundraiser list for 23-24.
Ladies and gentlemen of the body, we have heard the presentation from Dr. Donald Warren on item 3, GSCS 2023 school fundraiser list. Are there any questions at this time? Ms. McDonald, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Brown. This is quite a list. We know today that fundraising is important for any public school system, much less a public school. I just had a question about, and I may have missed it, but I don't see school pictures on here. As far as, I know that schools, maybe I just overlooked it, but are schools still available? Is the availability of having pictures made at each school, will they continue to be able to use those funds they raise for things at their individual schools?
Yes, ma'am. It is a long list. I'm looking at the pictures now.
I may have just missed it.
It's not in alphabetical order.
And actually, my question is, I just want to be sure that schools are still going to have the availability to, number one, schedule pictures and make money from pictures for their individual schools. That's the only thing I need.
Yes, pictures is on here.
Is it?
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
Great, thank you.
Are there any other questions? All right, ladies and gentlemen of the body, you've heard the presentation and the questioning. What is the pleasure of this body as it relates to item number 3, GSCS 2023-2024 school fundraiser list?
So moved.
You go ahead, Ms. Cook. So moved by Ms. Cook of the 4th.
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Doss of the 2nd. When your district is called, please vote. District 1, yes. District 2?
Yes.
District 3? Yes. District 4?
Yes.
District 5?
Yes.
5-0. Approved. Next up, Dr. Donna Warren, Tyler Technology Support and Maintenance for Tyler Drive 2023-2024.
Yes, and I'm representing our transportation department. We're seeking approval to send funds in the amount of $30,000 to Tyler Technologies for the 4G Tyler Drive 3 on the Verizon network. These funds are for our support and maintenance fees that run July 1, 2023 through June 30, 2024. All of our buses are equipped with navigation devices that provide turn-by-turn instructions to our drivers, to include providing specific student information, allowing them to know which students' bus stop is located, even pictures from the campus, and contact information in case of emergency. So this support and maintenance and this feature is very critical to our bus drivers to use on a daily basis. So this time, I'm seeking your approval for this purchase.
All right, ladies and gentlemen of the body, you've heard the presentation from Dr. Warren as it relates to Tyler Technology Support and Maintenance for Tyler Drive 2023-2024. Are there any questions at this time? All right, thank you so much. What is the pleasure of this body? It's been moved probably by Mr. Holmes of the 3rd. Is there a second?
Second.
And seconded by Ms. McDonough of the 5th. When your name is called, please vote. District 1, yes. District 2?
Yes.
District 3? Yes. District 4?
Yes.
District 5?
Yes.
5-0, it is therefore approved. All right, next up, Superintendent recommendations, Dr. Keith Simmons.
I have one more.
Oh, no,
Yes,
where did I
sir.
skip it? Yes, I did
Okay.
skip it. All right, Falcon Wireless Bus Radio, Dr. Donna Warren.
Yes, sir. Again, I'm representing our transportation department. We want to purchase from Falcon Wireless Direct in the amount of $55,280. The 136 Hytera push-to-talk over cellular radios. This purchase will be made with East Plus funds, and the annual over-air fee this year will be $24,094 we paid through our transportation general fund budget. Currently, our buses use pretty much CB radios that work off of one tower, and you can lose connection in inclement weather or if there's a power outage. However, with the Hytera push-to-talk over cellular radios, that would not be a case, as they would use existing cellular networks, AT&T, Verizon, Sprint, what have you, in various parts of the county. Communication is louder and clear. So if there's ever a power outage in inclement weather, we can still communicate with each other.
All right, thank you so much. Are there any questions as it relates to this item on the agenda? All right, here, no, wait, Ms. McDonald?
I just know that this was a pretty bad situation during the tornadoes, so this will help that situation if that ever arises again. Is that correct?
That is true. Mr. Harris and the gentleman from the company went throughout the county far and wide to assess the viability of the system, and it worked very well
Very
on
good.
the cellular towers.
Thank you. That's good to hear. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Are there any other further questions for this item? All right, hearing none for Falcon Wireless Bus Radio, what is the pleasure of this body?
Move to approve.
All right, it's been moved by Ms. McDonough of the 5th. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by the Dean of this board, Ms. Barbara Jo Cook. All those in favor, please raise your right hand. 5-0, it is therefore approved. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
All right, Mr. Dawes, do the honors, please.
Mr. Chair, in light of information that came forth in executive session, I make a motion that we table the Director of Transportation position for this evening and move on with the Executive Officer of Elementary Schools.
All right, ladies and gentlemen of the body, you've heard the recommendation from the Vice Chair to table, pull this item from the agenda. What is the pleasure of this body? Is there a second?
Second.
It's been moved by Mr. Dawson II, seconded by Leader Holmes III. All those in favor, please raise your right hand. Okay, 4-0, 4-1. All right. Those opposed? All right, 4-1, motion is passed to table this item. Next up, Dr. Keith Simmons, item B, Executive Officer for Elementary Schools.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Members of the board, at this time, it is my recommendation that we appoint Mr. Antoine Sanders as Executive Officer of Elementary Schools for the 23-24 school year.
All right, thank you so much. Ladies and gentlemen, you've heard the recommendation of the superintendent. Is there any discussion to happen at this moment? Any discussion? Hearing none. All right, what is the pleasure of this body to accept the recommendation?
Mr. Chair, I make a motion that we accept the recommendation of the Superintendent for Mr. Sanders for Executive Officer of Elementary Schools.
Second.
It's been moved by Mr. Doss of the second and seconded by Mr. Holmes of the third to accept the superintendent's recommendation of Executive Officer of Elementary Schools for Mr. Antoine Sanders. All right, when your name is called, please vote. District 1, no. District 2?
Yes.
District 3?
Yes.
District 4?
Yes.
District 5?
No.
All right, vote is 3-2. The item is passed.
Mr. Brown, could I retract my vote? I don't know how we do this, but I thought we were already on B, and I voted against A, and I didn't mean to do that. So can I fix that?
Yes, you may. Let's just take it back. Mr. Doss, can you restate the motion, please?
Thank you.
That we table the,
Wait, there seemed to be some unreadiness. Motion to reconsider? Okay. All right, so let's add this as a motion to reconsider. And it has been motioned by Mr. Doss it's been motioned by Ms. McDonald to reconsider. Is there a second?
Second.
All right, so hearing to reconsider, motion by Ms. McDonald the fifth, seconded by Mr. Holmes of the third. All those in favor for this motion to be reconsidered, please vote by raising your right hand. All right, 5-0. Now, let's reconsider this vote. Superintendent recommendation for Director of Transportation for this item to be pulled. It was motioned by Mr. Doss of the second, and it was seconded by Mr. Holmes of the third. We are now ready to reissue a vote for this under the motion of reconsideration. All those in favor, please raise your right hand. All right, 5-0 for a motion to reconsider for it to be tabled.
Thank you for the opportunity to repair that.
Thank you so much. All right, moving on. Presentations and discussions. Griffin Spalding County Schools referendum resolution. Dr. Keith Simmons.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, at this time, I'm going to invite some guests to come up and lead and facilitate a conversation relative to the referendum resolution. I apologize. With us this evening, we have Mr. Bill Camp and Mr. Collier McKenzie. Mr. Camp represents Raymond James, and Mr. Collier McKenzie represents Butler Snow LLP. Gentlemen? Yes, sir.
It's good to be with y'all. I'm a stranger to some of you, but it has been a while, but my firm and myself have worked with your school district before on prior sales taxes and bond issues. And we also work with your city government, your county government, and your airport authority. So we're not strangers. It's just been a while. Thanks for having us. I've prepared some information that a lot of your staff they're probably tired of seeing it, so I apologize in advance. But we think this is good information, and I will be quick, but please, if you have any questions or need clarification, just please stop me. All right. This is a history for what's happened with your ELOST, your education sales tax here in the county. In other words, SPLOST renewals are nothing new. in Spalding County, Griffin Spalding, and you've also in the past very frequently put bonds on the ballot and giving you the option to borrow money in advance of the cash flow from the SPLOST. Here we are in SPLOST 6. We voted it to begin July of 2020 and hoped for it to go through June 30th, 25. There's a star up there because we're gonna hit our cap early. This is just a long-term look back at your sales tax, and you can see sales tax is doing great. Last 5 years, you've averaged almost 9% growth. And there's a few things, I mean, obviously Griffin and Spalding County are growing communities. There's a lot of sales going on, but you had internet sales in the state of Georgia that are now being taxed. You've had, just a pickup in internet sales during COVID, and you've also had general inflation. A hamburger costs more than it did 2 or 3 years ago, so that's why the SPLOST is continuing to grow. Okay. When you voted the sales tax in 19 for it to begin in 2020, $50 million was the collection cap, and growth, like I said, has been greater than it was historically. So without much growth from where you are today, just your present collections, we're going to hit that cap probably March 31 of 24. That's more than a year early. But again, your staff has seen this coming, and so that's why we're at this point now talking about a renewal so soon. All right. You've got choices, but if we want to keep that sales tax cash flow going and we don't want to have a break in collections, we need to look at November 7th. And could it go beyond March 31 of 24? Yes, it is possible. But if you vote in November, and if the sales tax is successful, this new sales tax would begin upon the expiration of the existing tax, whether it's March 31 or June 30 of 24. Good timing. All right, lots to do to make it all happen by November 7th, and that's why we're here in the summertime talking about the referendum resolution, which Mr. McKenzie is going to brief you on. But I just wanted to just see, why are these jokers here in July and we're talking about a vote in November? And that's why. There's a lot of things to do, notices to go in the paper, and the public generally needs to be told what's coming. All right, so if we vote a sales tax, and if it is successful, we're going to collect a lot more than $50 million. You're collecting right now about $1 million, 1 or 2 a month. That's great. So about $14 million a year. With no growth in the sales tax, you're going to collect $69 million and change. Again, we've averaged sales tax of around 9% a year during this last SPLOST. So we want to vote a cap that is a collection dollar amount big enough that even with some larger growth than average, our advice is we want you to go the full 5 years. The cap in this referendum resolution draft is predicated on about 12.3% growth. That's more than we truly expect to collect, but again, the idea is to keep it going. All right. Bonds. Debt. It's a 4-letter word. But it's a good tool, and you're about to vote, or we think you ought to consider voting a renewal sales tax. I'll tell you, you need to do this. And a tool that you need to include on the ballot is the ability to borrow money, so that our other option is we collect money every month over time. We We collect those dollars for a particular project, and then once we have enough money to accomplish it, we can bid that one project out or several projects of that dollar amount. Bonds allow you to be a little bit more proactive, get some stuff done sooner, and there's some advantages to that. Your referendum resolution that we're going to talk about more tonight contemplates voting the ability to issue $62.3 million of bonds. And it's based on these interest rates, and the idea is that we don't want to vote a bond issue larger than we can carry with very reasonable assumptions on our SPLOST. We want the sales tax to be sufficient to pay debt service on the bonds. Things happen, sales tax can decline. We just don't want to have this become a general fund obligation. I mean, obviously, it's the backstop. Any and all your revenues are available to make debt service, but we've designed this referendum and designed it around these numbers, which assume a bond issue that you can tote without any kind of growth in sales tax where you are. These numbers contemplate an average cost, an average yield of about 3.11%. That's the current AAA scale plus 0.5%. All right, and debt service is a little less than $14 million a year. Why do we often see school districts include bonds on the ballot? Why do we want you to include this? You are able to complete those top tier projects right away. And why does that matter? Well, kids get to use them sooner. But also, letting a contract sooner than later cuts out inflation. And that's a real cost. That's a real concern. A lot of times we need dollars before we can get our state money. We have to have our local funds in hand, and then we spend money and we're reimbursed from the state. So bonds help you do that. You're a public school. That's a great public purpose, and the IRS allows you to borrow at tax-exempt rates, lower interest cost than a corporation would. And you're able to put those dollars to work. I'll show you a little interesting information later, but you're actually able to borrow at a rate lower than what you can deposit the funds in a bank account for. So. All right, inflation. All right, look at what's happened since COVID sort of broke loose. This is a year-over-year comparison. June costs for new school construction inflation. So every year you see a little bit higher cost per square foot or for a new roof. But in 22 and 23, just like interest rates went up, we saw cash injected into this economy. Cash was more available, things began to cost more. We've had 15% increase in 22 and 10% increase in 23. That's on top of 15% the year before. So if I was deciding whether to let a contract in 21 and I was trying to hem up money and do it in 22 or 23, that $1 million project, by the time we got to 23, that's going to cost $1 million, $250,000. I mean, it's a real number. Okay, this is the same data, just showing you a little bit different way. If I had $1 million in 2011, right, what I could do with $1 million in 2011, the dollar erodes in value over time. So it's only about 56% of what $1 million was worth back 12 years ago. And most of that decline has happened in the last few years because inflation is generally about 3 or 4% a year, and then it has really spiked. All right, interest rates. Interest rates have gone up, it's true. You're looking at a picture of the yield curve currently. The red curve shows you where we are today. The Federal Reserve has been raising short-term rates. That dark curve across the middle is an average Long story short, yes, interest rates have gone up. Yes, 2 years ago, a bond issue for a SPLOST bond would have been 1-something%. But 3% average cost of borrowing on a 5-year sales tax bond issue like this versus 3, 7, 10, 15% a year, year after year after year. That's why bonds for you make a lot of sense, and bonds in this economy make a lot of sense. All right, this is just as information. I don't know what rates are going to do between now and when you vote and now and when you might issue some. But presently, we're borrowing at a cost of about 3-something%. But you're able to reinvest your cash. That's your SPLOST money, that's your general funds, and that's bond money. You're able to reinvest those dollars at a profit, 2% above your cost of borrowing. So, cutting out inflation, and it definitely carries itself during the cost of during the term of construction. That's it. I'm happy to try to answer any questions y'all might have, and I'm also happy to introduce Collier McKenzie from Butler Snow to explain the referendum side of this.
And Bill, obviously is available if it may make sense to ask questions or whatever you're.
I greatly appreciate it. Thank you so much. All right. Collier, right? No, he's Collier. Your name?
Bill King.
Bill. All right. We have any questions for Bill?
Not at this time.
All right. Thank you. Collier.
Sure.
You ready?
So I'm, as they said, I'm Collier McKenzie from Butler Snow. How I got here, why I'm standing before you today. So Elizabeth and I were law school classmates, and I do bond stuff. She does school law stuff, and so she asked, can you help us do the e-SPLOST planning and get a referendum together, because there was this need to do it in case the current SPLOST ends up ending early. So that's why I'm here before you today, and I'm honored to be here. So as Bill said, how we got to these numbers that are in the referendum really came from Bill's help. I'm just a word person as a lawyer, but it did come with a lot of work from y'all's facility and finance folks, and Dr. Simmons and Elizabeth and I met and put together a project list that's also included in here that I'll show y'all and just kind of tell y'all why what's in there is in there. And then I've got the referendum drafted so that if the current SPLOST continues past March, which is when we anticipate it ending, the current SPLOST will stay in effect until it reaches its $50 million cap, is the way that this is drafted. But you'll be ready to go, and there won't be a hiccup or a gap between collections with the way it's drafted. So on the, let's see, oh wait, I can, there. All right, so way back on the, let's see, uh-oh.
Paul, do you need us?
Here we go,
Okay.
I got it. Here we go. Sorry. All right. So this is in, what I'm showing you now is an exhibit to the referendum, and that's where this project list is. And that's a lot of times where a lot of the effort is put into this planning by the school district folks. And they did a great job here to make sure we had a very comprehensive list to go there. One thing that was helpful is that they just did a local facility plan that has been approved, and so the timing of that was nice for this process because that identified several different projects that are now or would be needed, throughout the district. So it gave us an idea of numbers to use and all that. And so a lot of the projects, that were covered in the local facility plan will be covered by number 1 in this list, for instance. And then we've got the second one contemplates improvements to any athletic, physical education facilities, which includes very broad, includes fields, it includes support facilities for athletic facilities. That would be, you know, scoreboards, it'd be bathrooms, it'd be the, you know, those big square buildings at every baseball field, you know, that kind of thing that you could think of. And then also playgrounds, physical education equipment, things like that you'd be able to use as well. And then we've got some sort of catch-all language in there that allows you all to do some different technology improvements, security improvements, different things that we put in these resolutions in different places to make sure that the board and the school district has the tools to be able to do what it needs to do with SPLOST dollars and can really get the most bang out of their buck. So if y'all have any questions for me, I mean, one of the things that Elizabeth and I were talking about is, you know, she thought it'd be a good benefit for y'all to have a draft of the resolution so that y'all could provide any input that y'all wanted to on this project list or whatever is in there before y'all are asked to vote on it at your August 1st meeting. So.
Thank you so much, Collier and Beal, for coming tonight and presenting to the board on our eSPLOST referendum. Before we do that, I want to bring Bruce Ballard, Mr. Ballard, up to the front just to go over what is on this eSPLOST list and the schools that will be a part of this.
All right. Well, glad to again come and talk about this with you. I have had the opportunity for a number of SPLOSTs now to work with Bill, and he's always been a big help to us, and certainly appreciate his efforts here tonight and throughout the projects we worked on in the past. And now to have the opportunity to work with Collier, he's been good assistance in helping us out with the wording of the referendum and so forth as we move forward. And I think we're getting in a really good position. You all may remember that back at your February retreat, we touched on some of these items and about the need to try to work toward continuing on for the next SPLOST 6, or SPLOST 7, excuse me. And with that, we had begun last year looking at these projects. We also had talked about the local facility plan that we were working on, as Collier had just mentioned, and the fact that with that has in the past generally created the roadmap and the guidelines for our real needs and what we went out to do for our capital projects and school facilities. Those capital needs and projects have been out there, and that's a part, as you know, we have to do for the board and the state board every 5 years. We go in there, we review every location, every room we have in our school system. We look at the needs of the school system through that. And from that, we develop and bring back to you all, with the help of the state, a local facilities plan that lays out priorities of our needs and so forth, that's approved by our local board and then also by the state board. So with that, we did complete that back in April of this year. And had that completed. So that was, as mentioned, a very timely process that fell into place with this as we move forward. Our needs that were established there in that process are around $102 million. We're fortunate that some of those needs were already being accomplished in SPLOST 6 that we're working on now. Then the next 5 projects that fell in there is kind of what we looked at as to move forward with next. And the amount for SPLOST 6 of the projects we had that were based on a facility plan were around $36 million. So I looked at this and moving forward, not expecting quite the $102 million cap when we first started looking. But again, we have to be conservative because that certainly can turn down. You're certainly not guaranteed that maximum amount. So we want to be conservative as we move forward. But I looked at the next 5 projects, and that generally amounted to around $38.5 million. And so with that, we have Carver Road Middle School, we have Rehoboth Road Middle School, we have Cowan Road Elementary School, Jordan Hill Elementary School, and then Griffin High School. will be major projects that are already laid out, established as on the priority list for our local facility plan. So that's what makes up that initial importance of capital needs, capital improvements that are laid out there. In addition to that, we have, over the last number of years, also participated and helped out with technology improvements, technology needs. We've done things in the past with the EPIC system, replenishing Chromebooks, and as well as administrative laptops and so forth in the past. And so with that, we considered that. In the past splosh, we had roughly about 6.7 million in there for technology. Technology needs are going up. We've got a lot of needs out there. Lonnie had looked over his list and what all was there, and actually this time are looking at something more along the lines of $16.7 million for technology needs for this next 5 years that we're coming on here. So that has been considered in there as well. We've also looked at, in the past, we have provided for buses. The last several splosh, we've provided for buses in there. So we have roughly $3 million included in there for buses and replenishing that. The last several that we've had, we've also had safety and security improvements. That's one that's there that I put a little to be determined by that after talking with Dr. Simmons a little more about it. But with that one, we still have roughly about 2.2 million in Splosh 6 for safety and security needs. We've been very fortunate that the state has issued a number of grants for safety and security. And we have just recently gotten an additional grant that we're currently working on that covers about $50,000 per school. So with that, we may not need quite as much for that one. But again, I had taken, and what I was originally looking at and was considering was around $2.3 million or so in there, that based on what we had done in the past. But again, that could come down a little bit. We also looked at the needs at our high schools. We have talked about this several times here recently. We heard the people that were here tonight to speak about Griffin High. It's very difficult these days to do something at one school and not at another, just because of the way that with just two high schools, everything needs to be as closely equivalent as possible. We had talked about several months back that we have some additional funding for Spalding still in Splosh 6, where we were fortunate to come in under budget on the original construction and needs out there that we originally had in place. But we have some money there that we can take care of, for example, improving, going in, resurfacing their track, redoing their tennis courts and so forth. But it's hard to go out there and do it there and not have some funds that you can do it with across town. Or we'll have even more discussions like we're having tonight. So that's something that we wanted to provide some additional funding in there to kind of cover some of those needs, and again, to help for some equivalency. Again, it goes both ways. We did in the past splosh, and several years ago, we improved the lighting at Griffin High School on most of the major athletic fields out there, and now it's LED lighting. They don't have that at Spalding, so of course they'd like to have LED lighting. So those are things that again, we may be able to take care of part of that with some of the funds we still have in Splosh 6, but if not, again, we want something in there in that general category that Collier mentioned earlier for athletics and so forth, that we can accommodate that and try to make things as even as possible across the board. The other thing that we have, again, as mentioned tonight, we had talked about, we have some dreams we put off for years, improvements here on this campus, where we want to make sure we took care of the needs at the schools and other campuses before we did this. But we're getting to that point where we have some needs here that we really need to get done. And we had hoped, we put together a design, put together a plan to and we talked about it before with a new vestibule out here, out from this site, or out from this room, have this to be our new entranceway into central office, tie the buildings together, really make some improvements that could really be beneficial and kind of change the face of things around here, and set us up for the future as we go forth. And this continues to be the main point of contact where most people first view us with the school district, and as well as just some improvements around the site that it doesn't make me happy every day when I come to work and see some of the non-grassed areas and stuff like that around here, but with the situation the way it's set up right now, we really can't address that. But with some improvements, some retaining walls, some other needs, we can do some things around here that would really make this place look like it should look. And so with that, we kind of looked at that based on the pricing that we have already put together and looked at some of the things we're trying to do, where we're falling short in the funds we have available. And with that, we put roughly around $8 million in there just to hopefully take care of the other needs around this campus, if we can have that funding there to take care of it. So those are kind of the projects we put out there. Again, we try to work it out and have some funding there where if we have some additional funds available, we had the flexibility to work with that, flexibility to do some things. Oh, one other thing I do need to point out that came in, the one I forgot. We also have been talking about inclusive playgrounds, inclusive areas for our young scholars. We did the playground at Crescent earlier this year. So for that part of it, I had gone ahead and put an amount there to consider for playgrounds improvements to handle inclusivity at each one of the elementary school, and as well as for Mainstay. So with that, we feel like we've covered it. We're trying to take care of the needs of the system the best we can and have it opened up to where we can do it. But we do feel that it's important as we move forward that we go forward with a game plan with something that's been established and can work with, where we're not kind of getting hit up like the county has done and what the county has gotten kind of beat up over and struggled with over the years. That they continue to go out there. People are asking for different things. They're changing their plan all along until they get there for the vote. In the past, it's really behooved us and been beneficial for us to go in with a plan and try to make it work. So that's what we're hoping to do with this as well.
All right, thank you so much. Board members, we have heard even the presentation from Mr. Ballard. Thank you so much for reiterating what you discussed at our board retreat. I thought it would be good for the general public to have that knowledge as well, if they are not reading the content that we put out there. As it relates to, my only question was, which I'm glad that we have this copy, a lot of times is the language for voters when they go to the polls. And so who actually wrote this? Great job, great job. It is straight and to the point. As I sit and I think about the levels of government, I think that a third grader would be able to understand this. And that's what we want. We want to make sure that we give our voters information in a way that they can read it and respond to. So we also have other information as it relates to the eSPLOS timeline. This is in your packets, and we're going to follow it. There also will be an appointed committee by the Board of Education. Each member will have a person that they will recommend to serve on the committee. Let's make sure that we have that within the next week or so to send over to the superintendent's office. I know in district, if you have a person that you have already talked to, we can just go ahead and put that out there for District 1. It will be Mr. Harvey Booker, who will serve as the District 1 representative, and also as an at-large member will be Dr. Quimby Melton. They both have experience in our eSPLOS committee, and so we definitely want to use their knowledge and expertise as we continue to push. Is there anybody that you have for District 2, Mr. Doss?
I am speaking with Mr. Chuck Copeland, and I believe that he wanted to make sure that the chair position was settled before he fully put his name into the hat.
Yes, sir. District 3?
I'm tentatively, I had to make sure I get a last name right. Phyllis Barkley Easton, former DFACS director.
Okay. All right, District 4?
I have reached out to someone It's very promising.
Very promising. Good. All right, District 5.
Working on it.
Working on it. All right, so let's just get that over the next couple weeks. Let's try to get that solidified and sent up to the superintendent so that we can corral everybody together to do great things as we pass this eSPLOST, which we know will benefit our families and benefit our scholars and everything else that we have going on in our school district. So thank you so much to Collier and to Bill. Thank you so much for your expertise and knowledge presenting to us tonight as we are ready to move forward. Thank you to our board attorney for your due diligence and work in making sure that this was put out in timeline and in the right format, so we greatly appreciate it. All right, next item, 2022-2023 Federal Programs Update, Dr. Keith Simmons.
Okay, members of the board, I am taking the both liberty and pleasure to present, I guess, most, if not all, of the presentations in some ways, just to make sure that we are providing the appropriate level of information as well as the level of clarity needed for you to digest it. I'll start with our non-negotiables, being professional, accountable, and communicating effectively. Our focus areas have not changed. Our intent to be both a literate community as well as focusing on our enrollment, the number of students who are in our classrooms and our schools on a daily basis, the way that they behave and their abilities to solve problems remain paramount for us. There before you is the pyramid, the results pyramid, as well as the steps to accountability. The mission and vision has not changed. Distinctive brand, strong leaders. As we move through the strategy map and our roadmap, this conversation is going to hone in on the areas as it relates to aligning resources to student and staff needs, particularly as it relates to the use of federal funds. Board members, what I want you to take away from this particular slide is that federal funds are broken down into 5 primary categories that we are leveraging at the moment. Title I, you're most familiar with. At the end of the day, succinctly, that talks about socioeconomic status. The emphasis of Title I is to ensure that those students who have low socioeconomic status or considered to be poor are given an even playing field, and that's what those funds are intended to do. Title II talks about supporting instruction, said differently, really and truly, professional learning. So a lot of the funds that we use to support professional learning comes from this particular stream. Title IV, much of the same. School improvement are those schools who are both tend to have low socioeconomic status as well as difficulty in moving student achievement. That's what that needle is about. And then all of us are very familiar with ARP/ESSER funds. All of you know that those funds will be going away momentarily, I think at the end of the 24 school year with some carryover opportunity in 25. This 3-legged stool talks about the 3 arms or the rules that undergird fiscal requirements as it relates to supplanting. The intent of federal funds is to supplement, not supplant. Said differently, it is not intended to use federal funds to replace general funds. Federal funds are used to supplement, improve upon, advocate for, things of that nature. Comparability is a term that you'll hear me talk about a little bit later on, but in many ways, that's in, I guess, the first iteration of equity when it comes to educational equity, opportunity, and access. Maintenance of effort is the school district's ability to ensure that what we begin to do, we can sustain that, and that those practices lead to comparable results. So here, I just gave you the gist of Titles 1, 2, 4, ESSER. That's what this is for here. I know that you have this information in your packets. This is the meat of it. I know that there are often questions about how are we able to use Title I funds. Be reminded that the language of the regulations are federal. Just complete continuous school improvement plan, or that process you hear us talking about, performance reviews and the CSIP planning. That's where that comes from, our ability to ensure that we're aligning the funds to the goals and the initiatives in respective, not just school district, but in all of our 18 schools and 3 programs. I'll bring your attention to this last bullet, budgeted expenditures that are clearly and concisely able to meet the intent and purpose of the funding stream. Said differently, so when we talk about professional learning needs, those funds should be aligned to the objective of the professional learning need. If you have a need to improve pedagogy or content delivery, that professional learning activity should be able to demonstrate how you will do that or why you're in that particular space at that moment in time. Each school district shall be developed in consultation with teachers, principals, administrators, and other appropriate school personnel. This is the language from the federal reg. Basically what it talks about is the ability to collaborate with all of the school's stakeholders, both internally and externally, to have voice to ensure that the needs of the schools are being met, particularly when it comes to the use of federal funds. As I begin to wrap up, I'll share with you on this particular slide some of the more popular and widely used uses of federal funds in Griffin Spalding. Extended learning time for students, particularly since COVID. Staff professional development, as you heard me talk about, Title IIA. Student instructional supplies, again, that falls into 1 and 2. Technology, as you heard Bruce talk about, and staff instructional supplies. So those are the areas that we tend to spend the bulk of our federal dollars on. At this time, I'm happy to entertain any questions that you may have about the use or the function relative to federal programs.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, we've heard the presentation. At this time, are there any questions? Are there any questions as it relates to this presentation? Dr. Simmons, I do have some questions, and this is true or false. Is it true or false that federal programs and the finance department work closely together to manage and oversee these funds and programs?
This is true.
True. All right, can you give us a description of what federal programs' role is and what the role of finance is in managing and overseeing the funds of the program?
Succinctly, federal programs' function is to ensure that the funds are aligned with an allowable expense. The role or the function of finance, because that's our primary accounts, or I guess you can say accounting structure, it has to make good with what we do locally in Griffin Spalding. The need for those two individuals or those two departments to collaborate is because we are I guess you can call it a consolidated fund district, Fund 150. It used to be all federal funds were deemed as such, but when we began to move in that direction, you could use Fund 150 even though those are federal funds. Just making sure that that mixture of funds, we still meet the needs or the allowable expenses and the use of those funds. That's why we have that, I guess, collaboration between federal and finance.
Okay. And in those allowable funds, what is the role of, let's say, we know the role of federal programs, we know the role of finance. How does this relate to specific things that may happen financially at schools as it relates to bookkeepers and training that they may receive, either if it's coming from federal programs or coming from finance? How does that all work together in this?
I'll start with the bookkeepers. So again, the role of the bookkeeper is to ensure accuracy and making sure that those books are kept, that there's some type of reconciliation, and that we're following the district's policies and regulations relative to accounting practices. If it's because or through the use of federal funds, then again, there's a degree of alignment and approval that takes place at the State Department. We are becoming at that point a thoroughfare, making sure that we're using the funds the way that the state intended for us to use them. Oftentimes, schools will ask if funds can be used for a particular event or a particular expense, and so we have to push that back up to make sure that those events or those expenses are allowed. Taking it back to finance, making sure that requisitions are made in a timely manner, making sure that codes are used appropriately and the such. So again, it's really an integration of the work, but there is a degree of approval and oversight not only here in Griffin Spalding, but also in Atlanta.
All right. Are you aware of any training that has happened on the federal program side or the finance side for bookkeepers as it relates to being able to actively and properly manage the funds or to do the accounting purposes for either the different programs or funds dispersed at the school level?
More so on the finance than federal. In many ways, my depiction of what happens on the federal side is to ensure that the funds are used appropriately. The role of the bookkeeper is the functionality. Those decisions are made by the school's administration, not the bookkeeper.
All right. So do you know if there's any trainings that have been done on either federal program side or finance side, and maybe the directors here could probably answer it. Do you know of any trainings that have been done for bookkeepers to be able to, so they would know the role and the function of what they're doing?
In a word, I'm familiar with trainings that have been offered. To the degree of the content that was offered in the training, not familiar with that.
All right.
Use your mic.
If I may, just since you brought that up, over the last 3 weeks, I know that we've invited all departmental secretarial bookkeepers up to central office face-to-face, and one of the things we've tried to get away from is so much virtual training. So we've invited them up to our new building. So we've hosted 4 different sessions over the last 2 to 3 weeks. All elementary bookkeepers were hosted this previous Wednesday here because they went home. They were not 230-day employees. The middle and high school bookkeepers were hosted 2 weeks ago, and the departmental secretaries, including some of the folks in the room, including Ms. Ray, they were all offered training as well here in my office. And we went through procedures and purchasing, requisition process, and a lot of those items are potentially going to change when we get our new accounting system, but we were reinforcing what our current processes are for right now.
All right. Thank you for answering that. Ms. Alston, are you able to answer that as well, if you can yield to her?
Sure.
Can you come up to the microphone? Thank you.
Yes, sir. The Federal Programs Department also provides training to the bookkeepers. For the last 3 years, we've done startup and mid-year trainings. We actually just had our training last week with them through the Kick-Up system, where all the bookkeepers and the principals were invited. And I don't mean to put one on the spot, but one is here this evening. Principal Jordan, thank you for joining us during that training as well. Every bookkeeper has also been provided a guidebook regarding how to be able to go from step A to step Z of just entering requisitions, what are we looking for, and we do that quite often with them. But yes, sir, it's been formally provided to all bookkeepers.
All right. And both of these trainings have been housed in Kick-Up as well?
Mine has.
Your federal programs, but not for yours, Mr. Jones?
I believe we need to check on that. I don't think ours is in Kick-Up, but we will make sure to ensure that.
All right, great. And these questions come, I got you, Leader Holmes. These questions come so that if there are staff members who are unclear about training, unclear about certain things, then you know where it lives and where it is housed. And I think that that has been something that I think that needed to be out there so that folks understand the distinction between the two different departments and what they do and the functionalities of them, and who bears the burden of making sure that the accounting, the structure, and the state wants us saying that, hey, these are the funds that will be dispersed and these are what they're using. And so, thank you so much to clarify my questions, and hopefully for those who may be watching as well. So we greatly appreciate it. Any other questions? Well, Leader Holmes, do you have questions?
No, you answered it.
Thank you. Any other questions as it relates to this item on the agenda from the board? All right, thank you so much. Dr. Simmons, you're still up for Summer Enrichment Program update.
Yes, sir. So again, I'm going to take the liberty and the opportunity to get into the weeds a little bit and talk a little bit about our Summer Lit program. I won't go over the non-negotiables and the such as I have in the previous program. What I want you to take away from this particular slide are all of the logistics that went into not only planning but the operation of this year's summer program. We had a 15-to-1 student-teacher ratio. We had students that represented all of our schools, K through 8. We also tried to ensure that those students who were most at risk in terms of academic performance or in need of enrichment were contacted and given the opportunity to attend the summer program. You can see here the dates of the summer program that included the instructional days of June 5th through the 29th. We did observe the holiday of Juneteenth. That led to a functioning program that operated 4 days a week for instruction or core academics, and then we tried to use Fridays to take students on experiential learning field trips in the, I'll say, 60-mile radius of the metro Atlanta and middle Georgia area. This is just an illustration of the ways and the types of notifications that were sent to parents, the number of notifications that were sent to parents, and the frame of the time window that was sent out to those parents. We also included our efforts to ensure that those who needed transportation, we had that information communicated to them in enough time so that we could take advantage of that function. So I know that the board had expressed some concern about the level of participation or lack thereof for the summer enrichment program in the summer of '22. That became a major focal point for the summer program this past summer. Having said that, I'll draw your attention to the nearly 900 students who were invited and the number of nearly 460 or 470 who participated. So you can see we still were just able to get more than half of the students who were invited to participate. That was at the elementary. You can see much of the same at the middle school levels. In all, however, what you'll see is that we had roughly 800 students participating. I'm sorry, not 800 students participating. So the number of summer instructional and administrative school staff who participated, more than 100. Basically what that meant, I wanted you to understand the brevity of the amount of staff that it takes to operate a summer program. At the end of the day, we operated between 12 and 14 buses on any given day, ensuring that those students who needed transportation had the ability to be transported. So I'll give you a few seconds to take a look at the data as it relates to who participated, who was invited. We are looking at ways to ensure that those who are invited are either able to attend, or we can better understand the barriers that prevents them from attending to make sure that they are most likely to be ready for the next grade level at the start of the new school year. Just a little bit of information about the curricula that was used for summer. You may not be familiar with Bell Excel as it relates to the math content. I'll share with you that this particular curriculum is not what we use during the normal school year, and this particular curriculum did not come with its own assessment. So we had to create an assessment in that regard to ensure that we could determine to what degree are students learning with the curriculum. With regards to students in K2, like we always have, we used Orton Gillingham. We did not try and differentiate that. We tried to make sure that everyone who participated in grades K through K2 had the same OG experience. Again, trying to make sure that students are ready for the next grade level as best we can, but also trying to take into account that some of the staff who may have participated in summer school may not have had the same level of preparedness, and so trying not to overwhelm the staff as it relates to serving students over the summer. On this particular slide, just to give you a little bit of insight from the feedback, at the conclusion of the summer school program, parents received a survey that basically talked about what worked, what did not work, what were some of the barriers, and ways that we can improve upon the program in that regard. So just wanted to share a little bit of that with you, share with you on the far left the types of questions that were asked, and then throughout the spreadsheet, if you would, a disaggregated view of how those questions were answered. And succinctly, I'll give you an opportunity to ask any questions that you may have about the summer program.
All right, thank you. Board members, are there any questions as it relates to the summer school update? Any questions? Any questions? All right, I do have some questions, Dr. Simmons. Let me open up my Google Doc. So one of the questions that I asked when the presentation was done earlier was, and you stated that there was not an assessment built in.
I believe I said that.
So it was not, so there was not assessment given through the Scholastic, because that information is conflicting from a previous presentation.
Ask your question again. I'll get.
So the question is, did the Scholastic, you stated that it was not built in, assessment was not built in.
For the math curriculum.
Right. So but for the ELA portion, the assessments were built in?
Yes, I believe so.
Okay. All right, so can we talk about the data for the post-assessments, for the pre-assessments, and then post-assessments?
I didn't bring any data with me, but I'll try and talk as best I can.
Okay, so can you go over that? Do you have it? Was it presented to you?
No, well, it was presented to me, but I didn't include it in the presentation.
Okay, so so there's no need to kind of go through these questions if we don't have it readily available for you to speak to, right?
You can share the questions with me, and then I can use the data to respond to the questions and copy the rest of the board if that's okay.
And I'm still, and this is a different presentation, but from the map update that was done nearly a month ago, I'm still waiting for my questions to be answered that came from the presentation with Dr. Taylor and Dr. Greer. Are you aware of when those questions will be answered?
I'm not, but I'll work on that and let you know something tomorrow.
Okay. All right. So maybe we can do some note taking right quick as the questions that I have as it relates to the assessments and for the summer school update. So are you able to tell me what was the average academic gain per student that attended the summer program?
In the moment, no.
In the moment, no? Okay, so I would like the answer to that question. Has there been an analysis and a comparison conducted on the milestone data versus the summer school pre and post test assessments?
No.
No. Okay, so I need that. Also, and we need that in ELA and math. And how did the data for the rising first grade scholars improve for the summer pre or post test comparing to the results from the G Kids?
Which post test, pre and post, are you speaking
For
of?
ELA and math. For first grade students, for the pre-test for the G Kids for the 2022-2023 data.
Are you asking me about the rising first graders?
The rising first graders. So their data from this school year, how did it compare?
Okay.
All right, so we don't have that answer, so I would need that question answered as well. And I got this as it relates to, and I shared this with you earlier in regards to the survey that was sent out. I guess it was sent out was it sent out for parents and sent out for teachers, or was it just sent out for teachers?
Both.
Both, okay. So there seems to be an error on the actual, survey that was sent to teachers asking them about their kids, whether they attend as a parent. So can we get that corrected?
Sure.
Okay. And the last question that I have, understanding the information that was presented tonight and the feedback that was either given from teachers throughout the program, not the official one that was probably sent out today, because it's just sent out today, so they wouldn't have that. What, just through conversations and travels, what do teachers and parents feel that can improve about our summer school? We know that it was much better than last year, but there's still some rooms for improvement. Have they shared with you those things?
So no one has shared with me directly those things. From my observation, however, what I believe that we will be able to do in the future is more around the operations side, making sure that we can plan accordingly. As I shared with the staff, part of the burden that we have is we try our best to serve until the end. The problem that creates is it's difficult to establish the parameters of the program. I'll say that to you differently. We had to extend, rightfully so, the sign-up window. And in doing so, we had an additional 100 students sign up. We still only had roughly 50% of the students who signed up to participate. One would say that maybe we didn't need the number of schools that we originally identified. One would say that maybe we didn't need the number of staff that we originally identified. But all of that was premised around registration, not participation. So one of the things that we can do better is hold everyone accountable. If we ask for a sign-up, if you miss the sign-up, you miss the sign-up. That's a culture shift. I'm not sure that we're ready to go there, but part of that is part of the difficulty in answering some of the questions that you may ask, because it takes amount of time to get that data. The second side of that is the data is often skewed, because if you're not present when you take an assessment, that information is not included. So before I can say who grew and who didn't, I'd really have to go back and make sure that everyone who participated was also present when the assessment was given, and then that we have an opportunity to collect or track that data.
And that is normally done within the programming, because at this point, I mean, for you to jump in and say that you would have to do X, Y, and Z, I mean, is that still possible?
Well, I is we.
Okay.
So when you hear me say I, I'm talking about us. But yes, that's possible. It's just not readily available, because you do have to aggregate and then disaggregate the data.
All right. And how long would it take to get those answers back to the board?
Staff is writing the questions. I suspect maybe a week, 2 at best. This happens to be the busiest time for the staff because we're getting ready for the school year. But yeah, I'm confident we can turn it back around.
Okay, so it will be a quick turnaround as to getting those questions answered. All right, and then I guess the last thing from what is your plan of action once you receive the data from teachers and from parentals? What plans to be your plan of action then to improve the quality of life of our teachers for summer camp and the quality of education for our scholars?
Well, hopefully I'll have enough data to make improvements about their qualities of life. The assumption is that no one had a good experience. I would refute that. But I'm not able to tell you what I'll do until I'm able to see what their experience was.
Not saying that they didn't have a good experience, just when I'm asking that question, because obviously there were some things, maybe some operational things, and you admitted to that. So what I just want to make sure is that moving forward that we continue to get better and better and better. And board members have heard comments from parentals and from employees that probably worked summer school in the previous year. And so we know that it did get better. And so we are all here just to make sure that it goes well for, of course, our employees, but then really the biggest bang of the buck is making sure that our scholars enjoy it. And it's good that they had some experiential learning, going to field trips throughout the week, and a lot of scholars that have probably not been out of Griffin got a chance to get out of there. And so it is good that we are continuing to expose our scholars to things outside of our own city. So thank you so much for your questions. Are there any, for your answers, are there any other questions from board members as it relates to this particular item on the agenda? Yes, sir. All right, moving on to next presentation, certified and classified vacancies. Dr. Keith Simmons.
Yes, sir. Thank you again, Mr. Chairman. Board members, here's another succinct depiction of the data as I know it as of 8 o'clock this morning. So at the end of the day, we had roughly 31 certified vacancies, 19 classified vacancies. Those are breaking down by both category and grade band. Said differently, broken down by certified, classified, and whether they're in elementary, middle, or high. I'll give you a few seconds to take a look at that. In the event that you are wondering what have we done or what are we doing, I'll share with you to date. Members of the HR staff have participated in 24 job fairs in more than 2 states. They participated in 12 recruiting opportunities in which they've gone out and tried to speak about the reasons for people to consider Griffin Spalding. We've also had 6 recruiting fairs at various school sites. Said differently, this is an ongoing, very fluid process. Proud of that team and the work that they're doing in support of principals who are still experiencing vacancies. One caveat, the way that this works, and investigating with HR, I learned that in the month since June 15th, I think we had 6, maybe 7 employees who were under contract leave the district to take positions. And so, and in some ways, we're benefiting from that process as well as losing in that process. That's just the nature of the beast in the moment. So these are, I figured I'd include some of the flyers. You can see that it's on this flyer to the far left while it notes that the date on that particular job fair was February 4th, I believe our first opportunity to get out and recruit or offer a job fair actually took place in the first semester. We really began to intensify these efforts in the second semester. I figured I'd just share with you what some of these flyers look like. I also shared with you one of the flyers that we did to highlight special education opportunities, and then I shared with you another one in which we did a job fair both in person as well as virtually. The difference being one of those on the far left was in February, the one on the far right was in April, showing you the span of time that HR staff was working with school leaders to identify vacancies and find ways to fill those vacancies. That leads me to an opportunity to discuss with you what you may want to know or thought you'd see that you didn't see.
So at this, are there any questions from any members of the board for this presentation?
No questions, just a comment.
Comments?
Thank you for the hard work that is going into the HR department for the vast challenge that our state and nation faces.
I'm told that I think we were at 31 and 19, I guess that's 50, so maybe I think we were down 6 more. We had 6 hires today at some point after this was created. I don't remember the numbers right off, but the HR team notified me when I came in. So the principals are working hard. The HR team is working hard. You heard from Mrs. Battle talk about ways that we can outsource some of this work. At the end of the day, we're experiencing what you, Mr. Doss, recognize most are, and that's vacancies in the hardest to fill positions, and it happens to be special education and English language arts. As a former special education student and teacher, it does concern me, and I also recognize as a school system that has above state average in terms of special education students, that's why you hear from programs like Mrs. Battle about needs to outsource the ability to hire folks.
Are there any other comments? Ms. McDonald, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Brown. Dr. Simmons, I'm concerned, obviously, as we all are, about the vacancies, but I just want to know what the plan is. For example, we have a lot of new teachers with 0 experience. I know as a former educator myself, taking on splitting classes and sending them to room 110 and 114, and that's a bit. What's the plan to help schools overcome the vacancies that they have? Because I remember Calvin Middle was down last year. I think Carver was down at the beginning of the year. What's the plan in place? And I certainly appreciate everything that HR is doing. But I just have a feeling we're not going to be 100% when school opens on August the 1st. So what's the plan to help schools that are short?
So the plan is to be responsive. Some of the schools have more classified vacancies than certified, and the reverse of that in other cases. Some of the schools have instructional support vacancies, and the reverse of that in other cases. And what I mean by that is actual core content teachers. And so I gave you the larger 20,000-foot view, but when there was a time in which a bridge teacher did not exist in Griffin Spalding. So we will eventually get back to where they aren't in existence, but we still count those as vacancies. Right now, our intent is not to have particularly our most inexperienced teachers splitting classrooms with those who may be having a vacancy. So that's why you hear me talk to principals about the ability to effectively create a master schedule. That's why you hear me talk to principals and the staff about ways that we can retain employees, thus the silver recognition. But at the end of the day, it gets back to the ability to compete in a salary and a wage. Mr. Holmes can tell you what that's all about. There are individuals who, go after the larger paycheck. There's not a whole lot we can do for that now, but if you're asking specifically what are we going to do in terms of supporting schools on August 1st, we're going to be in those schools as best we can to make sure that children are educated from the first day. That's the plan. That's always been the plan. My prayer is that those who told me that they'll be here on the 1st shows up, because in many ways I have no control over that either. And that's where it gets back to making sure that people have the systems and the structures in place to support the people that we employ. As I've always said, if you come, we'll support you. But there are also some, I'll call it covenants within that. I agree to give you what you need if you agree to show up and be here, and that's what I expect. That's why we have the contracts. We're in constant conversation with our principals to figure out what their needs are. I can share with you that there are some instances where we have instructional vacancies, but we have instructional coaches. And so trying to have conversations about what the role of a coach is when there's no teacher, making sure that we can work through those types of situations. Those are all logistical issues, and everybody's assigned to do what they're expected to do. But we have those types of instances. I'm familiar with a situation now where that's problematic, trying to make sure that we can replace folks as they move on.
What school currently needs the most, has the most vacancies?
So at the Cowan Middle School and Spalding High School, I think both of those are upwards of 7, maybe 8. 6, maybe 7. Am I right? 6, maybe 7?
6 to 7 apiece?
And in context, you know, Spalding has a much larger staff than Cowan, but yes.
Sure. So are schools responsible for putting the contingency plans in place, or are they receiving direction from the central office to put contingency plans in place to be prepared for being short on 3 teachers on August the 1st?
I'm going to say that's both and. The way I see it, that's a partnership. I'm not going to put a burden like that on the school, because in some ways the school may not have any say as to why that vacancy is in place. The role of this group is to support the schools to educate kids. Once we identify that need, we're leaning into that process collectively. You're not going to hear this staff talk about what schools are responsible for when it comes to the education of our kids. However, there are times where we know more to support and help the schools, and the schools know more so that we can better support them. But in the event that someone shows up or someone doesn't show up, we're going to respond. It's not about whose responsibility it is. It's about the kids. We own them all.
Sure. I just have one more question.
Sure.
So I think new teachers reported yesterday, is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, were there any no-shows yesterday?
There were a bunch of people. I'm not sure if we had no-shows. Nope.
Okay, and orientation started last Friday. Okay, were there any no-shows? That's awesome. How about today? Yesterday. Okay, good. That's a good start. Thank you.
Sure.
Half of the battle is showing up. Are there any other questions?
Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much, Dr. Simmons. You are still up.
I am. I'm having fun.
Good. All right. Day 1 in the district.
Yes, sir.
We didn't go over this, the exit interview stuff? I don't think. It was in our package.
It's an informational item, Ms.
Oh,
McDonald.
really? Okay.
Yeah, but it's a follow-up, so she'll be able to present, or
You can ask questions in a minute.
yeah, somebody be able to.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Do I do that now or wait?
Wait.
Yes, sir.
Back to you, Dr. Simmons.
Yes, sir. So, members of the board, succinctly, this is a graphic or a flyer that highlights Day 1 in the district. As you know, Day 1 in the district is an opportunity in which we invite as many of our partners, whether it be partners in ed, parents, business partners, faith groups, you name it, anyone who has time to come out and help amplify the importance of not only school in general, but the first day of school, making sure that our students and our staff feel welcome. We're asking them to come out, give out high fives, give out handshakes, hugs for some, whatever it takes to make sure that we can get the school year off to a positive and momentous event is what Day 1 in the district is about. You can see here that if you have the desire to participate, we're asking that you contact Mr. Adam Pugh. His email address is listed here. We also want folks to understand that they can actually serve in more than one location. And what I mean by that is elementary or middle or high, or a combination of the two. We put the school times for what that looks like there. Happy to answer any questions that you may have as to what the intent is or what might that look like and its origin. I think this is year 4, I believe, maybe 3, 4, 2, 1, 0.
3, 4?
I think it's 4. Yeah. So this is year 4. The intent is for it to continue to grow, to try and capture as much of this experience and the memories that go along with the first days of school. In some ways, some of the photos on some of these banners here came from day one of the district or first days of school. But happy to have any questions or need for clarity that you may have about this particular event.
I don't think there are any questions. I just want to say to the Board of Education and to the superintendent, thank you so much for supporting this initiative. I started this initiative in the magnificent, omnipotent District 1 as school board member elect. And it has carried on all these years, minus the COVID years. But as we have transferred it over to communications, it's been a district-wide initiative. I just want to say thank you to Adam and Laura for all of your work, hard work that you do. Adam has been on the phone calling folks, making sure that we have people stationed at schools, Spalding County government, City of Griffin government, and there are a lot of other organizations, AKAs, Deltas, Brightmoor, just different people that help to make this happen. And so if you are interested, community members out there, if you are interested in participating, please reach out to Adam Pugh or reach out to a board member, and we will be sure to get you connected, get your organization connected, so that you can be there to cheer on our staff members and, most importantly, our bosses, the scholars of this district, to have an amazing school year. So just thank you so much for your support in this project. All right. Hearing no questions. All right, have a seat, Dr. Simmons.
I was hoping you'd let me do the financials. But
Oh, no.
Understood.
Money bag, yo.
Understood.
Come on up, Mr. Jones. June monthly financial report.
Money bags.
Adam, you may tell him the secret. I don't know if he sent y'all a text, but I said, what is Money Bag Yo? And he bought me what was that?
Brown snacks.
A bag of snacks. It's in my office now. Money Bag Yo. I had no idea what that stood for.
Look at my watch. I got time today.
Anyway, thank you, Mr. Chairman. The board members, good to see you again. I'm last, so I'll try to do my best to wrap this up. This is I'll call this a preliminary June report because of our cutoffs. Our commitment to Dr. Simmons and the board is to always give you a financial report every month. And a year or so back, we got more real time on that, so we're continuing that. But this was actually had to be turned in around on or about July the 5th or 6th. And in June, we continue to book entries to where we don't have to finalize that for the Department of Education until September 30th. So we won't give you another final June. We'll just update the ending balance as we go through the next few months for July. So preliminary June 30th over to the bottom left yellow, you're actually showing a fund balance of approximately $44 million right now. That's super. We do have a lot of entries, again, to book at year end, so I do anticipate that to come down some. And over on the middle of the page, bottom yellow, nutrition, very strong, $2.7 million right now in fund balance for nutrition. That's something to really be proud of with that CEP program that we've instituted in the district. Page 2 is our general fund financial statement. For the month of June, you will see that we have dropped approximately 3.7 in the bottom left column of the Yellowzat to bring us more in line with the expenditures for the end of the year. Notice over to the left, we have adjusted our budget column to what you all approved in the last board meeting for an amended general fund budget. And then over to the right, in the middle, in the year-to-date column, we spent so far for the year $95 million. We're still showing about $8.2 million to the good right now, so that's outperforming the budget that we actually asked you all to approve. So we'll see how that continues to come in as we book the remainder of our year-end entries. Page 3 is our special revenue funds. Again, the top yellows always represent our revenues. Bottom yellow is our expenses, and some of those have come in line. You can see, for example, the third column, ESSER 2 and 3. This is, again, the end of ESSER 2 when we close out this year. So far this year, we've spent about $15.6 million just in our ESSER 2 and 3 grants, just to pick on that item a second. So, again, next year will be the final year of ESSER 3, and then that'll go away unless we receive another allocation of some federal money for the same program for COVID relief. Page 4 is our nutrition financials, so $7.7 million in revenue right now, and again, that June number's got some estimates from Mr. Wheeler's office for revenues with the summer program. Expenditure $6.8 million, so it's still performing at about $900,000 to the good in 1 year. So if you add that to the prior year ending balance, that's where we get a $2.7 million in reserve for nutrition that was on page 1 of the balance sheet. Page 5, this is our investment register. I want to point out 2 things. I'll talk a little more on this slide than normal. Top left item, $29.4 million. So right around June 30th, we always have a requirement from the audit department that our banks have to collateralize the deposits. They have to pledge securities that we have to prove to the auditors that we won't lose money if something was to happen to the bank. So based on all that being said, we moved about $15 million from our local Wells Fargo up to our state investment pool account because it's drawing 5.12% interest, and Mr. Camp actually alluded to that on one of his slides in the bond presentation at East Bluff. So $29.4 million made that bottom yellow go up to about $60 million. So at any time when we need those monies, we'll just pull it down to our local bank account, which will have a lower interest rate, and then pay our bills. And our last slide, almost $1.2 million for the month of May for SPLOST receipts. So again, you can see over to the left, $38.2 million is what's been collected so far. And Mr. Camp told you we're working towards a $50 million cap. So in another year or so, we're going to be there, less than a year from what he was projecting. So that's all I have for you this evening. Again, it's a strong financial position. You will see some supplementary information as we go forward, but we anticipate coming in August and showing you a July report, not a redo of June. I'll just update you on some of that. So is there any questions?
All right, thank you so much. We have heard the presentation from Mr. Moneybag Yo Jones. Are there any questions about the monthly financials? Leader Holmes, any questions? All right. Thank you so much. All right, Dr. Simmons, you're back up. Informational item on employee retention and exit interview feedback.
You want me to present it, or you want me to just respond to your questions?
Good.
Is that okay?
Yeah. Can you want to present it? Let's let him present it, and then we can respond to the questions.
Okay, board members. So what I'm going to do is talk to you. This is a compilation of data that comes from a previous presentation that was made, I believe, at a work session, and the ask was to provide a little bit more historical context. And so I will go as slow or fast as you'd like. I'll try and hit on the key takeaways from the visuals. I will not necessarily go and read all of the numbers to you. The key takeaway here is that this is a historical trend from 2018-19 school year to this previous school year. And in some ways, you have to be reminded that the number of employees may have shifted, so it's probably not best to try and make an apple-to-apple comparison. Historical retention rate, however, is different. This is just a clear, percentage. And so again, from 2018, the historical retention rate was 80%. This past year, school year, it was 77%. The prior year, it was 72%. At its height, which was the year in which we didn't necessarily have a full school year, it was at 92%. This is the retention rate historically of teachers, not just employees as a whole. So in 2017, the retention rate was 77%. I said 2017 instead of 2018. This past year, it was 79%. Again, 9 percentage points higher than the last school year, 5 percentage points fewer than the 2021, which was an abbreviated year, as well as the COVID year of 19-20. Classified retention rate, you can see the comparison there. A downward trend up until this past school year, where we're starting to go back upwards, more than what we had the previous school year, not as much as we had in 2018. So this is about the exit interview. I think this was a hyperlink. You guys may be able to do that on your device there, I'm not sure. These are the elementary resignations. Let me caution you, these are all resignations. Please do not begin to wonder if these are teachers. Some of our schools don't have this many teachers. These are all resignations, whether they're nutrition worker, a parapro, a media specialist, a clerk, a counselor, a bookkeeper. If there was a resignation at a site, it was in this particular number here. Same for the middle schools, and I'll see if I can get both the high schools and the two programs there with GRCCA. These are resignations from district office. 29% of the employees who left the district this past school year completed the exit survey. 14 of those interviews were conducted in person. The vast majority of those were done electronically. I'll let you look at the breakdown of those numbers. Question number 7, indicate the primary reason you are leaving employment in the school district. The highest was a career opportunity in another district. Second to that is climate and culture, which includes student behavior. This question asks employees to rate their overall experience in GSCS. The level of satisfaction with the professional advancement opportunities. Relationships that are established with central office and the various departments within, whether it be teacher leader effectiveness, human resources, student support services, and so on. Timely feedback on job performance. Placing a priority on student achievement. Information being given in a proactive manner. Safety of the work environment. Opportunities for professional growth and development. And so in closing, what you may or may not have been able to capture, with the exception of proactive communication, with the exception of placing a priority on student achievement, and there was one more, I don't remember which one. The other questions relative to the exit survey was 70 to 75% satisfied or extremely satisfied with their employment in Griffin Spalding.
Question?
Yes, sir. I don't have a question slide. At this time, I'll entertain what questions or need for clarity you have.
So at this time, we will entertain any questions. We'll start with Ms. McDonald the fifth and just work our way around.
Thank you, Mr. Brown.
welcome.
Dr. Simmons, I'm just going to use the middle school page as far as the number of resignations as for a point of conversation. I'm not sure why I see numbers. I feel like that we should see percentages, because in doing my homework, Kennedy Road has 550 to 600 kids, Rehoboth 700, right at 7, Carver only 400, which I was totally unaware of, and Cowan around 600. So I feel like this information should be delivered to us in a percentage rather than a number, because, I mean, some of these numbers are pretty high, but as you mentioned, it includes classified, parapro, nutrition, but does not include transportation. Is that correct?
It would not. No.
It would not, okay. So we're just talking about bodies at that school?
Correct.
Okay. Because you're not really, as far as the population differences in just the middle school arena, you're not really comparing, in my opinion, apples to apples. Because the percentages, Carver had 11, but she only has 400 students. You understand what I'm saying? Whereas Kennedy has, whereas Rehoboth has 700 or so, and, you know, her number was just a little higher than Carver, but Carver has 300 less students. Does that make sense?
It does. I think what you're saying is that it doesn't give you an accurate depiction
Correct.
Of the resignations or
Correct.
the vacancies.
Because, even if you look at elementary, I mean, we all know that our elementary schools are not running at capacity. I mean, we've had those conversations before. I don't know. I just feel like as a board member, I would rather have a percentage based on the population of each individual school, and that would give me a better picture of people that have resigned from positions at each individual school.
Understood.
I kind of like the idea of both, too, so.
Excuse me?
I kind of like the idea of having both.
Okay, I can live with that. And then my other comment would be, I'm really surprised at 29% of employees answered the exit survey. I mean, that's pitiful. I'm not saying that to blame anyone. I just think it's pitiful. So were these employees followed up with? Were they called? Were they emailed? Meet me at Dairy Queen, I'll buy you a Blizzard. I mean, you know what I'm saying? Because this information for us is really vital, that we do hear the truth and that people can be transparent.
So yes, ma'am, I hear you. I heard Mr. Holmes's question relative to not being satisfied with the low performance in terms of getting people to take the survey or participate in an interview. As I've said before, aside from incentivizing them, I'm not sure what else we'd be able to do. Many of them, if they take it, do so prior to leaving. If we can't get it after their exit, it's very unlikely that we
Sure.
get it. I'm not sure if it's a matter of it being difficult. We send it to their personal email address. We offer a person-to-person or in-person, exit interview process. I'm not sure what creates that barrier. Mrs. Battle and her team will continue to try and find innovative ways to increase that number. But I'll be honest with you, short of offering monetary incentives, because you're right, it's valuable for us. Some people won't do this and will send an email on their way out. We'll try to capture that. And some people will do this or do this and the in-person interview. It's not my preference to have such a low participation rate. But the reality is it is, and we'll continue to find ways to increase it. I've been trying to figure out, to what degree has it gotten better since we've placed an emphasis on more participation in the exit interview process. And again, this is not the best time of the year for HR to be in that space because we're trying to onboard the new folks.
I totally get that.
Yeah, but I agree. It's not as useful as we'd like because the end number isn't as large as we believe it could be.
Okay, so for those 71% that didn't respond, were they contacted?
All of them were contacted.
Were they reminded to do that? And I mean, I don't know how many times you contact them to
I'm not
do
able
it.
to say how many times, but I think we're also going to do some things with the website and make it more visible. But if you were to go to the HR page, whether you've left the district or not, you can access the exit interview. I mean,
Okay.
so it's not.
Yeah,
a secret.
I haven't been to the new page yet, so I want to do that. But yeah, that just I don't know. It just kind of struck me in a real negative way. And I'm not saying anything negative about HR or any employees. It's just that it should be better.
Well, what I heard is that you're talking to the people who've left. I know that you're not blaming this group. This group is still here and they're working.
Correct.
The folks who've left, for whatever reason, didn't want to tell us why.
Okay. Yeah, I just want people that I'm looking at to understand me. I'm not bringing this up to blame anyone because I know y'all work hard, but this has got to get better in my opinion. Thank you.
Sure.
Ms. Cook, anything? Got anything? No? Okay. All right, Mr. Holmes?
Chairman Brown, I want to say I know this is Ms. Judy Battle's work. I know Dr. Simmons is presenting, but I feel better. I know she's heard me, and I've harped on
recruitment and retention numbers because it shows you where you are. Numbers don't lie. And this is the reason why I have for years harped on this. And I just want to thank whoever in HR put these numbers together. We can tweak them however we need to for our system, but this is a good tool to let us know where we are with our staffing, and when we do training as far as retention, as far as recruitment, as far as culture and climate, we can show them the numbers to show them that this is why we're doing this. We got to affect change. So I want to thank whoever, but I know Ms. Battle, being the HR director, she kind of led this voyage, for lack of a better term, and I'm just pleased to see the numbers because it opened your eyes up to your organization. So thank you so much for the work. And whoever else, I know the Three Musketeers over there, I know they had a little hand. What, 4, 3 plus 1. But thank you anyway for all this valuable information.
All right, Mr. Dawes.
In the presentation, the hyperlink, I couldn't get to work. So
You said you could not?
Yeah, I couldn't get it to take me anywhere. So I am interested in that process. I would also, I'm not going anywhere, but I would like to take the survey, the exit survey. Just, so I don't know how difficult that is to send that to me. I just think it would be good for all of us board members to know what our ex-employees are being asked. This information is great, and I realize, and I like the fact that we're improving in that aspect of it. But at what level, this is just a question, because I know it's got to go from HR to superintendent to get that information. At what level is an exit interview done and it is brought to your attention, whether it is, I know like when we do the Let's Talk app, there are certain words that are brought to attention. So is there words, or is there statements, or there's things that it brings it from that level to get to you, so that there's, how does that work?
You want to use the mic? I'll let Mrs. Battle share first how that works, and as best I can, I'll try and give you an example without getting into stuff.
Sure.
Okay, so in the actual exit interview, there is an opportunity to request a face-to-face. So one of the questions does present, would you like to have a representative from HR contact you for a face-to-face interview? So that's one of the questions. But we have the satisfaction schedule questions, and they can satisfied, dissatisfied. We use that rank. But we offer all employees an opportunity, if they want to have a sit-down face-to-face, it's included in the exit interview questionnaire. And to the hyperlink is the actual process. So once we receive a resignation form, a member of the team, even during the school year, sends out an email notification directly to that employee, to their GSCS email account, requesting an exit survey, telling them that you can please complete this exit interview. At that point, the employee, whether they take us up on the exit interview, if they don't, what we did this year, we utilized our student interns, and they actually called everyone on the resignation list going back to last semester, right? They did an actual pick up the phone and did a follow-up call. Then the next step is when employees leave the district, they get a COBRA notice, information about exiting the district, your last paycheck, how to continue benefits. The exit interview is, the link is also included in that notice. So those were 3 opportunities. We also have the link now on our webpage. So that exit interview is available by a first initial email once we become aware of the resignation. Secondly, we utilize student interns to follow up with phone calls. Thirdly, it goes out with their COBRA notice, and there's an active link on our website.
So this question was, at what point do you come to me and say, hey, this was in the exit interview, particularly the survey, and how do we manage that?
When we start to see patterns and trends, certain campuses may have very similar reasons, or certain divisions may have very similar reasons for people exiting and leaving. And that's when we gather that information and take it to the superintendent. Let's have a conversation about how we can help this school or how we can help this program.
Okay. So in your explanation, the 82 that you received electronically, 14 were conducted in person. So the 14 that were done in person didn't do the online one?
No, they sat down and we
Okay.
scribed. We had a conversation.
But if someone-
we presented the same we followed the questions, but they had an opportunity to sit down face to face, and in those questions, additional conversations came forward.
Okay.
All right. And I don't have any questions. Ms. McDonald and Mr. Doss pretty much hit on what I was going to ask, and so greatly appreciate it. Does that close out everything for this one, guys? All right. Thank you, Dr. Simmons.
Mr. Chair.
Mr.
Oh,
Chair.
I'm sorry, Mrs. Cook.
I'm like Ms. McDonald. I am concerned that there weren't more responses, but even so, there's a high percentage of dissatisfied and strongly dissatisfied in many of the categories. And looking at the primary reason that these employees are leaving employment, 20% said climate and culture. What I'd like to suggest is that we consider doing a climate survey for all of our employees, that we can get a better handle on the culture. In order to improve the culture, we need to know what the perception is out there about the culture. And I think we're all interested in improving the culture of the school system. So I would suggest that we look into finding a climate survey. And I know Mr. Holmes has mentioned that several times, and that is a concern of his. But I think we can get a lot of good feedback and a lot of understanding of where we are as a system and where the culture is with our current employees, so we don't continue to lose employees in the system.
Good. All right, thank you for that. Are there any more questions or feedback from members of this body for this item on the presentation? All right, thank you so much, Ms. Cook, and thank you, Dr. Simmons. All right, next up, policy information items. Policy IHA grading system, first read.
Good afternoon.
All right, yeah, so these are informational items. So the reason why we had Dr. Simmons to present that one is because it was in a previous meeting, and so we were doing a follow-up. So as you see, informational items, policy IHA graded system was on first read. We also have policy JBCB, non-resident students, is on first read. And in your packet, you received the first semester events. So like Real Men Read, Pumps, Pearls, and Books, Day One in District 1, and other programs. Read along, Dr. Seuss, and all that stuff will be included in so that you can know and plan accordingly. So we greatly appreciate that. I believe that we are going to go back into executive session to discuss and deliberate upon the employment of personnel.
Mr. Brown, is it prudent for me to ask a question about the regulation JBCBR, the non-resident student?
Sure, go ahead.
Okay, and I think Mr. Jones is responsible for this one, policy JBCB. I just had a question about line 88. An application must be submitted each school year. And would be better perhaps to say an application must be submitted each semester? I'm just playing devil's on line 88.
Yes, ma'am. And I wish Dr. Moore would, let me digress a second. I wish she could be here because what we try to do is write kind of a somewhat generic policy to see if you all were okay with the process of doing it, and then Dr. Moore helped me with some tangible language for regulations, which we can obviously tweak from year to year. But if you want me to take that back, I'm certainly...
Please, because I think you might be able to recruit people for a semester coming from another system.
Right. Well, let's see.
Because this sounds like, you know, well, this is the application process, but I still feel like that we might.
We can maybe it does. Maybe we need to be a little bit more clear. But if a student were to come in December and want to start, we would accept that.
Right.
Our understanding is we would accept that application.
Correct.
And go ahead and process them. But if you want me to put some more clear language, I'm happy to do that.
I just think we need to show the public and the people that this affects that the flexibility is there for their student to be a part of our system is all.
We can add some explanatory.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Brown. Thank you, Mr. Jones.
All right, so we do plan to go into executive session to discuss and deliberate upon the employment of personnel. Is there anything for board member comments?
Chair, the only thing I'd like to just bring attention to the back-to-school free cookout that is being done by the city of Griffin, and in conjunction with the school system jumping on board with that. I think that is incredible. And then also, board members, if you didn't get your new calendars, there should be one in your packet so that you can see that and have all those dates. Thank you.
And this event, the free cookout back to school done by the City of Griffin Public Safety, will be in District 1. So look forward to seeing everybody on Chapel Street between the Griffin Police Department and Fire Station. So looking forward to that. School supply giveaways, activities, music, and much more. All right. We're going to go into executive session.
Would you like a motion?
I would like a motion.
Motion for the
upon employment of personnel. Appreciate you. Is there a second? Seconded by Leader Holmes III. All those in favor, please raise your right hand. All right. The board is in executive session.